Okay, my friends, today we're going to talk about the Ultimate Warrior and his training routine. Now, I must warn you, there is some language in the text of the video, even though I edited quite a bit. It is an excerpt from a book called The Baddest MFers, and he spells it out ever, written by a guy named Jamie Chaos that I found on the Plague of Strength page. Um, and apparently, he did cover quite a few wrestlers. And he talks about even though the warrior actually died at the age of 54, and his excessive steroid use was probably a factor. Other guys that were big powerlifters and strength guys like Ted Arcidi also got into wrestling because there's obviously more notoriety and more money in wrestling. Um, and he talks about lifters in general being boring. They go to the gym, they train people to go home, never once stopping to rip an entire eight ball of a line off the dashboard of a moving car and leap out the nearest passerby screaming unintelligible words and throw them through a plate glass window like as a practical joke, supposedly Ken Patera did. I don't know about that, but that's what he's saying. Now, obviously, and he talks about that the warrior was not all that athletically gifted. He was just really strong and crazy. So here he is actually doing a slam of Andre the Giant, who weighed well over 500 pounds. Um, so he talks about doing a reprofile here, so his real name was James Helwig. Um, he was sane in the same way that Oprah is thin and the Kardashians are actually people. His promos were unintelligible, but entertaining, no doubt. There he is with the entrance video where he would come out and shake the ropes and just act crazy, but entertaining for sure. Now, like his eventual Coke and D-Ball fortified tag team partners, the Mad Max inspired and freakishly coiffed, angriest team on earth, the Legion of Doom, his go-to move was the Press Slam, which he actually did that to Hulk Hogan, who weighed 303, and it does mention that as being one of his, uh, strength feats. There's other guys from the Legion. They're not quite as jacked as the Warrior, but they're pretty big, beefy dudes, and also pretty crazy. As there were many people that acted crazy in wrestling. So here's the vital stats: 6'3", 280, gorilla press 303, Hulk Hogan, bench press in the gym 550, sanity non-existent, awesomeness incalculable. Uh, Perhaps you think that doesn't warm in a place like with among guys like Arthur Saxon. Here's Arthur Saxon. Arthur Saxon was like a turn of the century guy, and there were the Saxon brothers, and they did strength shows and did some pretty crazy stuff, although not nearly as crazy as the Warrior would ultimately do. Um, Bodybuilders in that era were so strong they either had competed in and dominated powerlifting or simply content to compete with one another, and he ran enough weight to smash a herd of mastodons flat. He eventually became tag team partners with the Legion of Doom, uh, which were both psychotic and incredibly strong. And there they are again. And obviously, they're pretty bulked up dudes too. Certainly not bodybuilding stage ripped, but certainly they have the size. And so talks about them getting bagged on by a lot of people. And he says that most people that do that bagging are, kids that live in their basement, kind of uh, ragging on those kind of kids. Not even kids, but whoever, older people living in their basement. Big Papa Pump, which is Mr. Steiner here, another big dude from the era, and another obviously, roid boy, as all these guys were. Let's not kid ourselves. Um, It's funny though that he talks about his ass being his proudest accomplishment. Uh, Fond of telling the story of how a skinny little kid befriended a rusty old workout machine, and the machine gave that kid an ass, which is interesting. That was his proudest accomplishment, not his biceps, triceps, delts, etc., his glutes. Then he got into this group here, which was like a power team that was around at the time. Those other guys are a little less well known and more like pretty boys compared to the Warrior. He debuted in a crappy little Texan federation. He would see him on UHF stations on Saturday mornings as a kid. Uh, but ultimately, when he got into the WWE, he had established himself as a bona fide maniac, capable of few legitimate wrestling moves, but also as the single greatest promo cutter in the history of wrestling. Not even The Rock could touch the Warrior's incoherent rants, so rife with insanity that he couldn't help but pay attention. I'm not even sure his rants were a work, given that everything he's done since is equally nonsensical and insane. There he is with another wild guy, and it's obviously the Macho Man. I don't know how this particular event turned out. Some of you more wrestling aficionados, I'm sure you do. Um, and he's admitted a great many times that he has no idea how many years steroid abuse took off his life. So if you're chomping on the bit to scream steroids, you pat yourselves on the back. Yeah, of course he did. But he also talks about how common steroid use is in commercial gyms and so forth. He makes comparisons to other guys like this gang banger from the 70s. This guy was actually a gang leader, and I guess he considers him a tough and crazy dude. Um, makes some interesting analogies and talks about that he would get quite a bit of attention training at Gold's Gym, and he looks sometimes like he's trying to get his face as jacked as his body by cutting the most dramatic faces possible, like this. And this is him older. This is probably pretty close to before he passed, which was again at age 54, which is unfortunate that he died that early. Um, but he believed that you work the muscles from the inside out, and he talks about how we could spend 100 years trying to figure out what that means, and we're never quite going to get there. Talks about him training some skinny jean clad meddlers from some band, and they didn't seem to like him too much. But that is what it is. There he is with the crazy look and pretty intimidating look, obviously, and pretty intimidating guy. Obviously huge at 6'3" and 280, and very little fat. Uh, the Warrior appeared to make up for uninspired training routines with full blown lunacy, skull splitting intensity, and what appears to have been a dogmatic adherence to a lifelong strict diet and training routine. Just prove to all it doesn't your program itself doesn't matter all that much, but your approach to it and your attitude is what it's all about. There he is, and this is like a 250 some pound guy, and he's not only had picked him up, but he's walking around with them. So that's pretty impressive. Um, Warriors' methods varied pretty widely. Back in the 70s, his workouts were 20 rep squats with a lot of pullovers, which was a popular program that at least in magazines and stuff, how many people actually did it, I don't know, because it was a brutal program. It was definitely effective. And he talks about other crazy strong guys like Larry Wheels, and you can find some videos of him. And obviously, he's a little bit enhanced too. Here he is doing working out with 5 plates, doing reps. So then we get into the Warriors routine. The mass split Monday to Thursday, squats and deadlifts, which doing squats and deadlifts on the same day on a regular basis is very tough, but he did it. And then all the other accessory stuff that you would typically find. Then Tuesday and Friday, chest and back. But it seems both on the heavy stuff, he starts out with like 12 reps, goes like 12, 8, 6, and he goes down to lower reps for the strength stuff. There he is, slinging this guy, and you could see, he's just a crazy dude. Weekend he would do shoulders and arms, and it talks about him doing clean the weight from the floor with form that would make the weightlifters in the gym stroke out. Uh, and then he would do like 5 sets of 4 to 10 behind the neck presses, and I'm sure with considerable weight. Laterals, bent laterals, shrugs, etc. And you can stop and take a closer look at that panel. Um, as always with these videos, and I tried to put the keep the text on there where you can read it. There he is doing one of his crazy rants, and his on the road split was chest, delts, and arms one day, back and legs another day. Typical of '90s bodybuilders, very little rest, 1 to 2 sets of 3 to 4 exercises per muscle group, hitting everything from a variety of angles and relying heavily on hammer strength equipment, which is interesting. Um, there he is again doing his entrance thing where he shakes the ropes and just acts crazy. And he's got his belt there. Interesting gear for sure. In spite of the fact everyone knows that excuses are like buttholes, people just don't want to admit that that's just what they are, because the only thing a lot of us should be really injecting is a truly terrifying dose of insanity, and that's where the gains come from. So he's talking about an email. We had quite a few emails about overtraining, and that he said, people were upset with him because he said overtraining is BS. These guys, who were also pretty crazy, said the same thing, that there's no such thing as overtraining. And I used to joke that just not taking enough steroids. um, you seem to think that I said rest and recovery is not necessary at all, and that is not true. He did not say that. He says, yeah, I do know that rest and recovery is important, and I never said that they weren't. Um, what I said and still stand by is that overtraining is not possible unless you believe it is in your mind. And yeah, it is BS. This is about as jacked as I've ever seen him. Bulked up, big shoulders, big chest, big arms. Crazy look, obviously. And so he says, train hard, and train harder. For good measure, you might want to throw in a fourth thing, which is gritting, grunting, and growling. And there's really no good explanation for this. Back in my bodybuilding days, it was typical to train body parts 3 times a week, including even the compound exercises like squats, deadlifts, bent over rows, and heavy benches. So there he is again, and he did end up in Wrestling Hall of Fame. Um, and obviously, if you went to see the Warrior, you're going to see some nonstop action. Um, During my sports entertainment career for over 5 years of practically straight through tour of duty, I traveled on a plane, never missed any hardcore hit workouts, no less than 6 days a week, and survived on 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, and ate mostly 5 or 6 cans of tuna fish and practically nothing else when I could not find eating establishments that served good, clean food. It's interesting that with all the other lifestyle things that he insisted on eating clean. And 5 or 6 cans of tuna fish is a decent amount of protein. I also wonder about the mercury content there. um, So number four, train even harder. Training is what people of all ages, young and old, need to concentrate on before they think too much about doing anything else, including the silly idea that they might be overtraining. Um, actually doing the exercise at hand will work wonders for your body that you would not believe. But I guess it's not, the new scientific method. There he is, obviously not with his makeup and stuff on, and this was getting towards the end of his career, and yeah, not a terrible looking guy. Um, Must get 50 emails a day asking me what's the best pro hormone and what is most important, working out or food and supplements. And they do not mean food and supplements to go along with the working out. They mean one or the other. Is it important to eat food and take supplements or work out to build my body? Yes, fellow warrior, you're understanding me that you need to work out hard. And this whole idea of, that people put as supplements being so important. And, it's been a kind of a ploy of the fitness marketing industry, and it's really not good for the kids. Problem with young people today is that they're doing too much theorizing and talking and not enough work. It's no mystery that athletic champions need to work hard, a full day's work of 8 to 10 hours a day to get to the highest level. Um, but I do know it is all BS, with just shoveling down health food and not being concerned so much with the workouts. Now, here's Ken Patera, who he mentioned doing the crazy thing of throwing somebody through a windshield after doing a huge line of coke. Again, I don't know of any truth to that or not, but that's what he says. Um, Again, he sounds like excuses to me and pretty pathetic ones, which are not tolerated around here. Get to the gym, shut the F up, train your guts and brains out, and your body will tell you when it needs a rest and recovery. When it does, give it some. But don't be a slave to its whining. Your best, most effective muscle building workouts will be when you least feel like it. And I know that to be true. Now, here's Paul Anderson, who also was obviously a great Olympic lifter, all around guy, and chose to get into the wrestling field to make a few bucks, mostly to support his home for boys. So thanks for watching. That's about it for the Warrior. Please hit those thumbs up if you like the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Thanks, and I'm out.